we check in with our buddy, TSN radio host and color analyst, Jamie McLennan.
Entrepreneur.
There he is. Were you having some cereal there, Noodles?
I was having, what's it called here? Poulet Rouge.
Ah.
Very good.
Delicieux. Yeah.
Chicken and rice. And then what they do is they give you like 6 things you can add to it if you want to add corn and cheese and all of that. And then they've got 4 different flavors of chicken. So I go with the barbecue and the lemon.
What did you add for your?
You love chicken and rice. Like that's.
Yeah. So I just added corn and cheese. That's it. I don't really add, like people add like beans and sauce and, I don't know, a bunch of other weird stuff. I don't do that. There's a bunch of weird stuff there, like green, whatever it's called, green onions and tomatoes and all of that.
Weird stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not for me.
Tomatoes.
Not for me. So I was having that. It's been a busy day. So I've been trying to get to it. I'm in Ottawa because I called the game last night and I stayed. I'm calling the game tomorrow. So I actually stayed, instead of flying back because tomorrow's my last game, right? Of calling games regionally. So that's it. That's it.
I was just noting that Fairfax is where you guys used to hang out in Ottawa. Did you get there last night?
I did not. I haven't been there since I actually played hockey. I
was with you.
I had a great Fairfax tie that I wore for years. It was awesome.
Awesome. Honest to God, I stay downtown Ottawa. I could not tell you where the Fairfax is, and I probably have stayed a block away from it for years.
Yeah.
I haven't been since, we'll call it 2004.
I would think that my instincts could lead me there if I was just in the neighborhood.
Follow your nose.
That's right.
Exactly. No, I have not been to the Fairfax since, I was playing hockey for the Calgary Flames. I can openly admit that. There you go.
What do you make of our Flames today?
My heart hurt, man.
Yeah.
Because I called my game and I got back. And I'm tracking Minnesota, and I'm like, okay, St. Louis is up on Utah. That one's gone. Because at one point it was 4 Cobb, and I'm like, okay, they're gone. Like St. Louis is woodshedding them. Utah's got their U-Hauls. They're gone. But I'm looking at Anaheim, and it's 1-1. And I'm like, okay, Mary Swanson, we got a chance here. You're saying there's a chance. And then it's 2-1. Okay, so I'm in my room. Whoa. And I'm watching. I'm like, okay, it's 2-1, and Minnesota is pressuring. And the goalie's standing on his head. I'm like, okay, the goalie, we've seen this guy, this Dostel. We've seen him do it to other teams. And what was it, 36, 32
or something.
20.9 seconds left. They have the puck in the D zone at like 30. They call a timeout with 1:16 left. Like it is last call in St. Paul.
It was. And my heart just breaks because it goes in and you're like, all right. And then I start calculating, okay, if they get a point, then Calgary's hoop, like that was it. I was like, that's curtains. And then all through while I'm watching Calgary down 3-1. So you're like, okay, it's the cynic in me is going, Minnesota's going to lose and Calgary's going to lose to Vegas. That we'll call what Philip Deneau likes to term the B squads throughout the league. Okay. So, and I'm going, God, like, this is how it's going to be. Minnie's going to lose and they're going to, Vegas is going to beat Calgary 4-1. And sure enough, you turn and it's like 3-3. Like now we've got a game. And it broke my heart to see Minnie win because I think the fans, everybody, you could just, again, I'm watching it on my computer on NHL Live, but you could just feel the energy, like you just feel like a balloon, the air come out. But then they gave the crowd a great game. It was an unbelievable overtime. It was, Wolf makes that glove save in overtime. I'm like, there's lots to celebrate of what the future is. This kid's a player. The kid's a superstar, I think, going to be. And you've got some players there, but it just, I don't know. Now I'll throw it back to the three of you. What do you make of this season? What do you make? Like, is it positive Wednesday? Is it negative Wednesday? Is optimistic Wednesday? What would you term it?
Well, it's about as painful as it can be given how close they got. But I think everyone would be honest with themselves and said this team's massively overachieved everyone's expectations outside of that dressing room.
Right.
I think the challenge is there's a lot of people that are close to the team. They're going to chalk this season up to incredible culture building. And the moment you might not want to sign Rasmus Andersson an 8-year deal, I wonder if that culture does carry on to next year.
I think you're proud of the team for what they did. And, maybe we're overachieved as far as expectations from the start of the year. I think you're extremely proud as a fan or a coach or a GM or whoever's involved with the organization. If you watch, you're proud of that group.
Yep.
But skeptical if they can do it again next year.
And again, ninth in the West, I think is very doable, but it feels like that would be a failure by Conroy if they finish ninth in the West next year. You got to pick a path here. You got to get your ass in there, or you got to get a couple seats at the McKenna draft lottery table.
Yes, I agree. And I think the latter is probably like, I would much rather them stick with the plan instead of this, we'll call it run down the stretch here, altering the plan. That's where I think you've got to be mindful. If a month ago you weren't going to trade, you weren't going to sign Rasmus Andersson, you've got to stick with that plan. If you believe that was the thought process moving forward. Now, they might say, "Hey, we're going to stick with him. We want him to be part of the solution moving forward," which is fair. But whatever the plan was before a month ago, I think you have to stick with it, even if it means some short-term on paper, pain, because that's where I think you can get. The Buffalo Sabres are a prime example. Buffalo's going on this nice little run before their season's done. Win 8 of 9. Hey, maybe we're not as bad, and maybe it's not as. And then you run the same band back next year, and you expect a different song. That's where I think with Calgary there has been growth internally. You've seen that, but now you need to methodically add to this group to continue the growth internally. To continue. So if you trade Rasmus Andersson for picks to get closer to McKenna, if you trade him for live players like the Morgan Frost and the Farabee trade, like in those middle tweeners, 25-ish players, that's going to help the process for the young guys to grow. Go ahead, Rhett. I can see you.
I'm just not even fearful. I don't believe Conroy believed this is where they'd be today or yesterday. Going into at the start of last year, September, I don't think Craig thought game 81, we're going to have a chance to make playoffs. I don't think that was part of it.
I don't think so either.
So, but what's the plan then? Because I know what you're saying. So we trade Anderson and we get picks. You're still. First of all, any team that's trading for Anderson is a team that's trying to win. They're not in the McKenna sweepstakes.
No, it's later.
So the only way you get to McKenna sweepstakes is by shitting your pants. And
Anderson getting traded would help.
And Anderson getting traded would help, but then it sends the message. But then we're all saying we got to build off of last year because they did a hell of a job. And I'm not. I don't even have an opinion because I think it's so confusing. Like I actually think Conroy and everyone should go away for a month and then come back and think about it. Because, yes, they had a plan, but there's no way this is how the plan played out. Mm-hmm. And now if you tinker with it at all, how does it affect the plan? And it's great. Would you say they overachieved or finished where they should? I don't know.
Overachieved.
I think they overachieved because of what the defense core looked like.
Then what do we expect for next year? Do we overachieve? Are we thinking we're back in the mix? Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, Calgary's not the only team in that boat. Like I would say, if you took Kent Hughes in a candid moment and said, "What does your Montreal Canadiens team look like 70 games into the season, 80 games into the season this year?" Well, I would have liked to, some growth. We got this kid Hudson, who's really, we think he's going to be a really good player. Did we all see Nick Suzuki being an 80 plus point player? Caulfield, 30, 37, 38 goals. I think you can see some of the build and go, okay, and we've got some veteran guys that we got to make decisions on. You got on contracts. But when Hudson goes, hey, I'm potentially going to be rookie of the year here. That's exactly what's happened in Calgary. Like the goalie has masked a lot of this. Like, you could be a lot lower in the standings if that goalie wasn't what Lane Hudson was doing in Montreal, moving the puck up and being a difference maker. So I don't think you can plan for like the surprise of a good young player going, geez, this kid arrived a little quicker than we thought. I don't think you adjust to it, but I do think you still have to, you tinker. If there's the framework of the plan, you still stick with the framework. You can build it out, and you're allowed to change a little bit on the fly. I'm saying this is just be my opinion, but it doesn't mean you go, okay, well now Dustin Wolf's arrived as a Vezina caliber goaltender. That's it. We're never going to be out of the playoff picture ever again. It's still a slow build, but it's a methodical build. And what I come back to is, if Rasmus Anderson is a part of the methodical build, you get the contract done if he wants to, and it works and all that. If he's not, you stay with that plan, because there'll be other players that you're going to draft and develop and maybe trade for that fit into that age category of growth. Because, you look at it, look the center ice. You've got Kadri.
They don't have anyone that's a star.
Well, Kadri and Backlund are both 35 and 37 or whatever it is.
36 and 35 next year. That's your
Right.
top two centers. No one else is a reasonable facsimile
They're
of a
not
top
getting
two center.
faster. They're not getting better. Like they're if anything, if you hope that they could sustain, that's the hope.
Mm-hmm.
But chances are Father Time brings them down one notch. So I think there will be natural regression, but that's where you're asking somebody else to go, geez, a healthy Connor Zary, what does he look like? What is, like Sharon Povich, the guys like that you go, what's his name again?
Salmon Govich.
Salmon
Govich. Sorry.
He switched his pregame meal, so that's what we're calling him.
Sharon Povich. Okay. But like guys like that. Yeah. And you know what? And the mutant, the right shot mutant, like give him a full season what this guy looks like, right? Like there is some internal growth here, but you have to add, like if you're Connie and you've got some money to spend, add methodically a player that's going to help the growth of the team. That's not a 35-year-old.
You've got lots of dough and lots of space to go add too. I don't even know who's available. We've got lots of time to look into that though.
That's where your mistakes are made though. That's what Nashville tried to do.
It's the McKenna talk though, just to get to that point, that's harder to wrap your head around, right?
From where they are to a McKenna?
Yeah. I mean, I think it was probably hard for Boston to imagine pick a top four. They could win the lottery.
I suppose, because I was just looking there. They have 94 points, potentially 96 if they beat LA. Mm-hmm. The 10th from the bottom is the Islanders at 82 points. So
I don't know that they're better next year. I think there can still be growth from kids.
Yeah.
And I still don't know that they end up with more points next season at the end of the year.
What about the goalie? Well, I just want to, because just looking at Wolf, he won 29 of his 53 starts, which is tremendous. His goals against, the save percentage, it's all right where you want it to be. So much is linked to how he plays. You talk about what can you expect from them. It's what can you expect from Wolf? Is this
the biggest thing?
What kind of sophomore slump regression? What kind of potential do you see there? Because it does feel like if they're going to bottom out, it's because he doesn't play well, and if they're going to be a playoff team, it's because he's tremendous again.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how many people have bet against this guy. That's the crazy thing. Like, we all go, too small. Like, not sure how it'll translate to the NHL. All of these things, and it's like, okay, every marker, every box that he's had to check, he's checked. Yeah. So if he ends up being UC Saros, which would be, and that's not a slight, that is like UC Saros is an elite goaltender, but UC Saros didn't have a great season this year, but he's a top tier goaltender. Mm-hmm. So if you say to anybody, any manager, you've got UC Saros for the next 10 years, you might get 8 good seasons out of him, out of 10, maybe 7, above average seasons. And there's going to be a couple below average and maybe one awful injury-riddled one. But like I look at Dustin Wolf in that same vein, and I think that's a compliment. Like I look at him as all this guy has done is proven everybody wrong as to like, can he handle it? Can he do that? Can he? And yeah, he can. Like he's proven it Now, listen, he had dips during the season this year. There were games where I didn't love his game, but that happens to every player. So I think they found their, let's get crazy and say found their kipper, but you found a cornerstone piece in net. I think it's imperative that they surround him with a veteran next year to help the mental part, the stability part. They need a good number 2 to play with him and allow him to grow and to be a mentor, off the ice, to be a good partner. Like, he needs a good partner next year, a citizen who can help him. That's I think the key for Connie and his group. And I don't know if Vladar was that or not. I think Danny Vladar's, and I've met him a couple times, seems like a wonderful person. But I'm just saying, like, a veteran guy, in a perfect world, it's like an Anthony Stolarz in Toronto, who was Stolarz, played with Bobrovsky and got his opportunity. There are veterans throughout the league, Wedgwood, guys like that, who are good number 2s that can help Dustin Wolf stabilize as your clear-cut number 1 and just help him grow. And it's the small details. It's the habits and practice, all of these things, being around a veteran that can help.
Yeah, I think the thought process with Vladar is he going to look for more opportunity? Because I think he's seeing it looks like it's 30 starts maximum in Calgary moving forward. So but they'd be open to having him back at a similar number. But is he still trying to find a platoon where he could win a number 1 or turn into a 1A? Because he's going to be a hard 2 here. Like, you've watched them, they've ridden Wolf the last month. Even when the results haven't been great, they've gone right back to him.
Yeah, because he's their number 1. He's their best player. Like, he is their star. The other thing, too, you have to go through the process if you're Wolf. He's never played this amount of games. So you've got to give him the games so that he realizes, hey, I'm playing every second night. Doesn't matter if I didn't play well last game. I'm going back in. Like, that's what starters do. They have to develop that mentality. Here's I watched him last night, did not have a good game last night. But a guy like Anton Forsberg, 32 years old, good number 2, works hard. You look at his underlying numbers. God, he had he had a bad goal save above expectation last night. I think it was a -3.3, and he gave up 4. Like, he had a bad night. But I look at guys like that who've played in the league, been around, work hard, good guy, that type of stuff. So Vladar, if he wants more, he wants a bigger ceiling for himself to go chase that. It's not going to be in Calgary. In Calgary, it's, hey, we've got 28 starts. We've got 25 to 32 starts potentially. And who can give us good minutes, good solid minutes, not be a disruptor, but not be a guy that just kills time in the net, has to get us points. Those are the types of guys I'm looking for to play with Wolf and can, work with him. Like, be a guy that maybe has been there before. Maybe it's a 1 that's now a 2. I don't, again, Cam Talbot's too old, but somebody like that. You're looking at a guy who has been a 1 in the league, but can play as more a veteran 2 type of thing.
You said Jake Allen a couple weeks ago. That's a nice name if you wanted to spell
Perfect. It. Like, honest to God, love Jake Allen. Great guy. Really well liked in the room, popular, kind of seen and done it all. Been a starter, now understands to be a 2. I agree. He'd be a perfect.
Culture's been the big word around here. We got the culture and we're a team. And I believe it. There's times when teams tell you, oh, we're real close. And you're like, well, you sure don't play like it. This team is like they care about each other.
Yeah.
You're talking about perhaps adding or switching out Vladar for someone else. It's not up to them. Vladar has a say too. Maybe getting rid of it. Question being, how much can you mess with the culture? If this team was real good, because the culture was real good, and you look back to a team like Nashville, who you idiots thought were going to be really good.
I thought they were going to be fantastic.
Yeah. How much do you learn maybe from that? And how much do you go, you know what? Yeah, I don't want Anderson on this deal. It's a little more than we want to pay. But I'll tell you what, the culture in the room and the group of guys care about each other. I'm buying into that, and I'm willing to ride it out. Like, you can make changes, but if this team was good because of culture, and I believe they were, how much change can you have without that culture?
Well, you still have to have.
I mean, it's going bad by having a change, but
I understand that. But culture, I'll give you a weird example. I talked to a player that went to Boston as a young player. Okay. And he got put on the power play and he got an opportunity. He missed a wide open net on the back door. And he turned and he smashed a stick on the glass and he went to the bench. And he was sitting on the bench and Zdeno Chara got up and walked down to him and said, "We don't do that here. That's it. We don't do that here. You don't let the other team see frustration. That's it. Like, we don't do that." That was Boston's culture. Okay. In Boston, and it's been passed down from generations. You know, we saw how the Bruins work. So Rhett, you're talking about culture with Calgary. You have to decide who the main guys who dictate that culture are. And somebody who you bring into that culture has to buy into that culture or help define it. I'll joke. Like, I got traded in 2004. We had a very tight team. The team was so upset they lost. Then the next game, you guys won 7-0. Nothing happened to the culture. You know, like, I flew to New York. I got traded there. I was very sad, myself and Josh Green. You guys went to Colorado and thumped them 7-0. Like, you took a few.
It may have had to do something with Colorado, but yeah.
The pain was, it was deeper than you guys playing, I'm sure. But I'm joking. But my point is if the culture is being built and a lot of the leaders in that room are guys who are either on long-term deals already or guys that are coming up that are buying into that culture, the critical part is, yes, you're going to have a few people leave. The few people that join the culture, even a guy like Morgan Frost, you're either in or you're out. And right now it looks like he's in, right? So he's going to help define that culture. So I don't mind the change as long as you're not blowing the whole thing up. If you do take a key piece out, who's a big part of the culture, if Rasmus Anderson's part of that, the person that comes in or multiple people that come in to replace him have to still buy into what is already being established. So you mentioned it, Rhett. The Calgary Flames have a culture that has been established and, people are buying into it. It might be Michael Backlund who's helped establish that culture. And he's not going anywhere, we'll call it in the foreseeable future, 1 year or whatever. Nazem Kadri might, but it might be Blake Coleman who helps that. But, the spine of the team who buys into that culture, I don't think they're going anywhere. What the young guys have done is jumped on board with it. The veteran guys are there. And if you add new players into it, Connie will figure that out. You're either in or you're out. And guys will, fall by the wayside if you don't live by their culture. I see it in Boston. I see it in
Boston finished in the bottom. I know.
It finally happened, though. There's enough turnover.
Yeah.
Like, you saw them lose Chara, Bergeron, Krejci, all the goalies they went through, and finally it was okay.
Finally, it's like, okay,
at the end
Uncle. Yeah, finally it's Uncle. I'll give you this, though, and this is a prediction for next year. I think Nashville doesn't bottom out. What they're going to do is double down on their moves.
He's doubling down.
I'm doubling down. Here's why.
More cheese toast.
That's all.
Here's why. Barry Trotz, I interviewed him, and he brought up a great point. He said, legacy players, when they first change environments, sometimes it takes them a while to settle in. Wasn't a great first season for Stamkos or Marchessault. Forsberg didn't have his best. Saros didn't have his best. You look at the defenseman there. What's that?
Roman Josi.
Yeah, Josi. He was injured. To me, it's just one of those years where everything could have gone wrong, has gone wrong. But I think if what Nashville does is they double down and go, we're going to continue to add to this group, this veteran group, and see what we come back with.
And then he'll get fired.
They won't get fired.
Or they figure it out.
They will be a team that will figure it out because they're just too good on paper to do that. My point, coming back to the Calgary Flames with it, is if you believe you're building something there, you still have to be bold enough to make tough decisions that might not be the most popular one.
Okay, such as
Anderson.
If you don't see Rasmus Anderson as
that's good, because what I was getting at was that's what Tampa Bay had to do.
Yeah, that's what they did with Stamkos, right?
Right.
You have a hard decision.
LeCavalier, St. Louis. They've gotten rid of Hall of Fame players.
McDonough,
I I've said this before. Managers have to be sociopaths. Look at Vegas.
Yeah.
Marc-Andre Fleury, face of the organization. Thank you. Agents tweeting out pictures of knives and backs, and like you
That's
like
right. Nate Schmidt, all these guys that were central.
These guys were day oneers, and they went to the Cup final in the first year. It's like, nah, not good enough. Peter DeBoer's there. No, Bruce Cassidy's available. You're out. Like, it's just they went from Jerry Gallant to DeBoer into Cassidy. It's I look at it and it's like they're hard decisions to make, and you can't. I think your best point, Rhett, is Connie's got to go for a couple weeks and just let the emotions die down and let this breathe a bit.
Don't talk to Iggy. Just chill.
Well, no, I mean, talk to Iggy because Iggy has.
Because if they talk, they have to.
Yeah, they'll fight over whether this is Fresca or if this is a form of Fresca. That's two of them. They'll always fight over that, which is great. You need differing opinions in the room. I just think the best point is we see managers get in trouble when they fall in love with players. Yeah. And then what happens when the player can't return that same love that they found in that one season, it looks bad in a long-term deal. It looks bad in holding on to that player instead of moving on. Stuff like that. That's where Connie's got to, have that little switch where he's like, I'm moving on regardless if I love this player.
And what are you? Sorry, did you?
Sorry?
What you talk about the spine of the team, goaltenders. How are they going to get a difference maker up the middle? Can you go yes, you can absolutely find a diamond in the rough in the 5th round, but it just feels like it's hard to do. Braden Point, what was he, second round?
Third. There
are players out there that turn into that, but traditionally you're trying to get the highest pick you can to do that. Does it just become that more critical for the scouting staff, the junior scouting staff or whatever, to know and have because that's what I see. It's like culture's great. I love it. And I played on teams where I'd rather play on a team with culture than high-end talent. I really would. But when I never won a cup because we didn't have the talent to we got really close with culture and hard work and not that we didn't have any talent, but you know what I'm saying.
I know what you're saying, right? Here's the thing,
makers at some point. And if you look at this season, it might be all the more obvious. They couldn't score 4 goals.
Right.
They couldn't get to 4.
But you got to add. So, okay, regardless of my philosophy is you might have to pay the Canadian tax. You might have to pay we're a smaller market on paper tax to overpay for a player. And I know, Pinder, you don't love that, but it might be the scenario where you go and get 1 or 2 free agents and you have to overpay them to come into your program. The other thing too is correct me if I'm wrong. Connie would have been in on Dylan Cousins. Connie would have been in on, Dylan Cousins, 24 years old. He's a hell of a player. Ottawa had to give up a player that they really coveted as well in Josh Norris. I think there are plays to be had out there. You look at, and this is crazy and it probably won't happen anytime soon, but you look at what St. Louis did. It's like, hey, we're going to be bold. We're going to catch a team up against the cap and we're going to go get Holloway. We're going to go get Broberg. Those guys have had good seasons. Holloway's banged up, but there are moves to be made other than the traditional, hey, we're going to bottom out and we're going to get this guy. And in 5 years, he's going to be our number 1 centerman. That is the traditional way. But there are non-traditional ways to, I wouldn't say backdoor your way. And did anybody think that Dylan Strome was going to be a 1?
No. Man, you look at Washington, they made some ballsy ass bets last summer.
Exactly.
We were freaking out at the notion of adding Pierre-Luc Dubois. And that's where Elias Pettersson is right now. That's the only other way to add a legit center is take on someone that feels incredibly risky.
Right. But those are moves. They're calculated, but you're right. PLD, people are like, my God, they're bringing a piece of cancer into a healthy body. That was the comments I would see. And he fit into what Washington built as a culture. And he's a hell of a player. I think we all knew he was a hell of a player, but we just couldn't figure out what made him tick. I look at it and I think there are moves to be made out there that we're not looking at. They might be right in front of us. and Connie might have something going, I'm going to do this at the draft. I'm going to trade this player for this pick and move this pick over here. And I might end up with somebody who's a 25-year-old centerman that has been a 3 in a deep organization. And I'm going to give him a chance to be a 2 or a 1. Like, that's what happened with Dylan Strome. That's what happened. I think Dylan Cousins is probably a 2.
I don't think,
But you know what I'm talking about. I'm saying you're getting players.
Well, he said Zegras earlier in the year. They talked about him and Pedersen and
right. I mean, Vancouver is an interesting case study because they got to get their coach under contract. I don't know if he's going to. I mean, he's been linked to 7 different ways to Philadelphia, a perfect spot for him to go back and be the face of that organization. I don't know.
I hated him there before, and I think I'd like him there now. I don't have to get punched in the nose by him.
Well, I agree. Like, I just look at
on that either, though.
Yeah.
I look at there's moves to be made throughout the league that, Pinder, you make a great point. I think this is the bold moves. How many people crapped on Tampa Bay for what they gave up for Brandon Hagel? Like,
Yep.
Like, it's a hell of a player, man. Like, he's a hell of a player. And I was talking to the Tampa players when I was down there, I think a couple of weeks ago. Hagel made a play that looked like Kucherov. If I would have had a blindfold on it, and I was like, what the hell was that? And I asked a couple of the players, they're like, Kucherov, these guys are like sponges around Kucherov. He teaches them.
That's what I was going to ask. Is it because of Kucherov, though?
Yes, because at training camp, apparently Kucherov came 2 weeks early, and all the draft picks and all that were just dying to be on the ice with. This guy was working on rims, pulling it off on his backhand and showing players like little details of things. I'm watching Brandon Hagel have a wide open lane in the slot, and every other player would skate down and take a slap shot. He fakes a shot and no look pass to the back door. I'm like, that's Kucherov. And he's sitting, and I was like, where the hell did that come from? So I asked the next day, and they're like, yeah, like, he's taught us deception. He's taught us things like, you're around it. So my point is like, if Connie's going to find guys like diamonds in the rough, you're going to go to organizations that maybe have tremendous depth in certain areas. And they're like, that kid's been around, I'll just say Vegas. I don't know. Like, that guy's been around Jack Eichel for the last 4 years. And man, he looks like, but he's not going to play in front of Eichel. So let's see what he has. Like, I'm just being facetious, but I'm saying, like, that's what you're looking at. That's what you're going to try and find throughout the league to add. And that person might be 24 and fits perfectly in the organization. And now you have a guy who can play in the 1 or 2 hole that you haven't had to draft and develop. And you're waiting for them to come, and the timeline doesn't match up with the goalie. And, my question is, who's their number 1 defenseman? Like, it's Anderson. Then it's Weegar.
It's Weegar for sure.
Okay. So you're keeping Weegar, and then you're probably moving on from Anderson. Now, Anderson,
shit for this not in shit, but somebody commented on it. I said, if you're considering moving Anderson, why aren't you considering moving Weegar? They're
similar pieces.
I
just think there's less. Like, you're signing up for 8 years from now. If it's Anderson, you've only got like 5 or 6 left on Weegar. Like, I don't think you're looking to commit deeper into the 30s later into this life cycle. You're probably hoping these deals run off sooner than make it longer. I also think Weegar's a better player. Like, personally, Anderson's had a tougher year. He's playing through the injury at the end here, but I prefer Weegar to him.
But if you're subscribing to the bottom out theory,
yeah,
then
you could trade them both for sure,
because you'd get a lot for both those guys.
Well, the bottom out theory, you pull those 2 out of the lineup.
They could have traded Anderson at the deadline, and they're not. Game 81 matters. They might have their own pick still. Look, we got way too long, but we haven't even mentioned Battle of Ontario. Just how enthusiastic are you? Do you remember the last one? We're even in media. You're probably still playing the last time these 2 clubs played in the playoffs.
I was playing the last time. I said it on my show the other day. They were like, "Oh, Battle of Ontario." I was like, no team in the league when I was playing was afraid of either one of those teams, because I was playing in the West, and it was Detroit, and it was, like teams like that were super, super serious that went on to the Cup. So I was like, yeah, Battle of Ontario. People watched it because it was on TV and Hockey Night and that, but I was like, none of those teams were winning cups. Like those were the years of the Detroit dominance, and Colorado had a team, and
Dallas
and Jersey and all of that. But that being said, I'm in Ottawa today. I live in Toronto. Everybody's jacked up about it. I think it'll be great. I'm more in the camp. I think the Leafs would be favored like 60-40. You talk to any Leaf fan, it's just that Ottawa should just hand it to them in 3. And here in Ottawa, there's some optimism because the Leafs don't have a great record in the playoffs. So it's like, okay, it's weird because in Toronto, everybody's like, we got to play Ottawa. You got to beat, that's the team that you're going to beat. And in Ottawa, everyone's like, God, we hope we get Toronto, not those 2 Florida teams. So it is kind of lined up that both teams want each other based on what could be waiting for them in the second round. But that being said, I do think Toronto's better. But I think Ottawa is better in some positions. Like if you were doing a draft, I'd probably take Allmark slightly over Stolarz just based on experience, but Stolarz has had a great year. If I was drafting defense, I would take Jake Sanderson as my 1 over anybody else available on both teams. And I might take Thomas Chabot as the 2 with how good and how great of skaters they are. But that being said, you look at Tanev is a fantastic player and heavy, and Morgan Rielly's a good skater and has had 70 points in a season. So I think Ottawa's top 4 is better than Toronto's top 4, but I think Toronto's top 6 is better, and their D are just deeper because you got Oliver Ekman-Larsson in the 5 hole, and on Ottawa's side you got a kid named Tyler Kleven who's going to be a good player, and he's big and mean and stuff, but he's a rookie, like he's in his second year, so he doesn't have a wealth of experience. And up front, obviously Toronto's top 6 are better. The difference between Matthews and Marner as opposed to Stützle and Tkachuk, it's definitely a difference, but I don't know how much that gap is. Tavares and Nylander, and you're looking at Dylan Cousins and Drake Batherson, who both had really good seasons too. So what's the difference? But I certainly give the hands down to the Leafs. But I would argue that the bottom 6 for both teams, that Ottawa's is better because you've got David Perron and guys like that, Michael Amadio, Nick Cousins. Those guys have won cups and they've had good seasons and they play hard. And the bottom 6 of Toronto is still patchwork. You've got Pontus Holmberg and Yarncroke and guys like that who are good players, but they don't have a long history of playoff success either. So I when I come down to it, I think the Leafs are favored, but I don't think it's this, hey, hand the series to the Leafs and we'll see them in the second round. They got to go earn it.
So just one more minute because we've gone long. 30 seconds. We talked to Dregs Friday. What's the Brady Tkachuk status?
Yeah, how healthy?
Been skating with the team. So I'd be shocked if he wasn't there in game 1. Like I don't know the nature of the injury, but he was in a regular jersey yesterday skating with them. I haven't seen what they've been doing today skating, but I think Tkachuk will be available game 1.
Okay. And last week we had, I guess, a grid of the probability of the Flames getting in. There was the Wild, St. Louis. So there was an asterisk in there, and then some things. We've gone with a pie chart for you today.
Oh, good.
With the Flames probability. So I'm not.
I'm disappointed. Like I don't know. I'm probably
regardless.
I'm in the 62.5. Like
okay.
I was disappointed. Like last week, I laid out a pathway for them to get to 94, 95 points, right?
They might get to 96 and miss.
Yeah.
They could literally be tied in points with St. Louis and lose on the tiebreak.
Yeah.
That's how
That's how tight this is.
It's awful. It's heartbreaking. But
it's great if you're right. You have these kind of races right down to the last.
It was good. Everyone that went to a game at Saddledome this year watched a game that meant something.
They didn't get cheated. I understand that, but it's still a kick in the junk.
It is.
You make 96 points. What's happening in the East? What's the number?
Well, yeah, it's
way lower.
It'll be the second year that the Flames will miss.
Is Montreal
more
going to
points.
screw this up?
Carolina's kind of doing the dress the skeleton roster tonight, it appears. We'll talk about it later, but if you lose this one, you don't deserve to get any help.
Yeah.
Look at that. 90 points gets you in. 90.
Yeah, 90 gets you in, and the Flames can end up with 96.
Yeah.
My God.
Flames have more points than Florida. They went to the Cup too. We know pain
Noodles,
out here, Noodles.
We got to let you go. Steak sandwiches at Bear Facts, $19.99. It includes beer. Have a great day, buddy.
$19.99. That's a good price for now.
Hey?
Inflation.
Inflation hasn't touched that. Jeez.
Jeez, well, you never know, but it
You'll
depends.
spend your money at other places.
Good seats available.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Later.
Yeah.
There he is, Jamie McLennan, our buddy on the Crystal Waters Plumbing and Heating Insider Hotline.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to check out more of our content right here on the Flames Nation YouTube page. We had a bunch of great long form interviews. You can check out some videos we've done as well outside of the studio. And of course, if you want more writing or merchandise stuff, flamesnation.ca or nationgear.ca. Appreciate you watching.